welcome back, everybody. We are here in the Week 9 recap and analysis, and I am here with the longtime listener, first-time caller, I believe.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Cass, how are you today, sir?
I am just peachy keen, Jake. Thanks.
Okay. So looking at your season so far, you are kind of right in that pack of 4 and 5. You're the highest point scorer of the season too, but you've kind of had a rough schedule so far. How do you think the rest of the season is going to shake out?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, prognostication in this league is like nay impossible. I mean, you go from several people have gone from scoring over 200 points this year to scoring 100 points the next week, and not even necessarily because of buys. It's totally volatile this year because of all the reasons that we all know about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those merry-go-round years, I mean, you can put everything up on a wall and spit a spit wad at it and see if it sticks, and that's about as good as you can do.
That is true. So looking at your points, I did mention you are the highest point scorer at 1477. I did mention there are a couple teams at 4 and 5. It looks like you and then Deshaun, Haley, Arthur, and myself. The difference between each of us is, again, you're 1477. I'm at the bottom at 1145. That's quite the difference there between 5th place and 9th place.
Yeah. And again, it's just the volatility of everything. I mean, when I score 200 points, the person I'm against that week scores 206 points, and
Mm-hmm.
came up from 120 the week before. So it's I've gone from heartache just to laughing at this point.
You have had the toughest schedule, having over 1376 scored against you. The next closest person being, it looks like, Zach at 1357. Now, the wheel up at the top has continued to turn, and it looks like Tanner is up there at the top. He's kind of had the easiest schedule at this point, just based on points against so far. I think it goes him, then Sean, and then actually third is Arthur for the 3 easiest schedules of the season up to this point. But.
Right. Well, yeah, and Arthur started out pretty good, but then now he's back down toward the bottom again. And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's just the volatility of everything. The whole COVID thing. I mean, look at the Steelers this week. I mean, who would have ever saw something like that coming?
Yeah.
And injuries, just, oh my gosh, we've all had just a myriad of injuries.
Yeah.
My one of my top point getters, Mostert, I might get him back in week 10, but probably not because they got a bye after that. I probably won't see him till week 12.
Yeah, I'll include it here in the email when I do send it out. But I saw a post on Twitter for a couple breakdowns and just seeing the stark differences on how these injuries and, like you mentioned, COVID as well, has really changed how each of these teams have functioned. I mean, Buffalo's one that they've switched from targeting running backs and tight end. Now it's just wide receiver. And then same thing with, like you said, Mostert. They've had such turnover in the backfield. All they're doing is targeting wide receivers at this point. So it's been crazy so far.
Right. And then also, who's to say once some of these guys are healthy again that the offense will come back and favor them,
Yeah. Or speaking from experience, McCaffrey will come back from the ankle injury and then mess up his shoulder. So you never know.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the guy was just like a freaking steamroller there at the beginning of the game. And I'm thinking, well, he's back,
Yeah. Almost. But going to do a quick recap here. Last week, you did get beat by Hayden. I think that's one of his higher point scoring games.
Yep.
But he is back in that win column a little bit after that losing streak, so that should change momentarily, though.
Right. And, from 3rd place to 10th place, we're within 2 games. I mean, so...
Jeez. Yeah, we are.
It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. So then it looks like Arthur had the lowest point total of the season, losing to Chubbawamba. Steel Dynasty got demolished by maybe just maybe. Masochistic Monkeys scored sub 100, falling to Bear Down for Balls Deep. And the last one is Flaming Moe's edged out the Dark Knights for, I believe that's like my 4th consecutive loss. So,
yeah. And I think, if Zach's team stays healthy, I think he's one to kind of worry about a little bit here.
You mean if Dalvin Cook stays healthy?
Well, sure, yeah.
I mean,
well, that's what I said, his team.
50 points this week, 59 points last week. I mean, obviously he plays Chicago next week, but then it's easy sailing. I mean, Dallas, Carolina, Jacksonville. I mean, yeah, he's set. But.
Yeah. And, if he stays healthy and stays away from the COVID protocol,
mm-hmm.
He's definitely right there at the top of his game for sure.
Now that I think about it, I'll probably have to look into it a little more. I wonder how much of this is as soon as a team is really hit by COVID, how much it continues to burn through each of the teams. I don't know that I know at the beginning of the season, Minnesota kind of had a little bit of a scare, but I don't think since week 1 or 2, they've really had anything COVID-wise.
Yeah, not that you're hearing about, and again, like you're saying, what is behind it? I mean, is it because now everything's mum's the word? Because you don't hear follow-ups on it.
Yeah. Interesting. I'll have to look into that and see if I can dig something up. But
right. I think a lot of them are putting them on 5 days of restraint,
mm-hmm.
and if they test negative those 5 days, now of course they're coming back. So it kind of affects them because, like Roethlisberger, I mean, he's not going to be able to practice with his team all week now.
Yeah.
And they're coming off of that big game with Dallas,
mm-hmm.
and so who knows? Maybe he won't play, and maybe he'll score 60 points.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and like Sean said, how do you know whether you should put him in and play him or not?
Yeah, that's the crapshoot there. I am going to ask though, have you gotten the old COVID test?
Myself? No.
Yeah. No, not yet. Oh, well.
No, to me, I'm along with that whole strain of people that say it's a flu. If you get it, you get it. You work through it. If I got down and out really bad, I'd go get tested.
Yeah.
But, I've had, stomach aches and different stuff, all through the summer and
sure.
into the fall. But I'm not going to sit here and scream COVID. I think that's stupid.
Yeah. I at work they did have a thing where one of the guys tested positive, and then they're like, "Okay, everybody go out and get it tested." I'll tell you what, they tickle the brain every time. It's not the most comfortable test. I can just imagine how some of these guys, even just proximity, where they have to test you 3 or 4 times and just
Oh yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. I've had a coworker that had to go in and get tested, and he said, "My God, I think I'd have just seen them shot a 38 up my nose."
That's funny. Yeah, but we'll see how it continues to play out. But we are going to jump on over to the league pick'em and kind of going along with that theme of volatility. Pick'em has been all over the place with Tanner at the bottom at 19, and then it's just a game or two away from Sean up there at 27. He did separate a little bit from Zach, but everybody is still within reach. So we'll see how that one continues. And then quick shout out to the survival pick. It does look like Zach is still going strong. Picked New England yesterday, and they obviously squeaked by the Jets. So we'll see how long he goes, again, at the record at this point. So congratulations there, sir.
Yeah, exactly. Good job.
Yeah, but before we get on over into the next week matchups, I know waivers have not yet gone through. They will go through tonight. And without giving away everything that you're going to go for, do you have your eye on anybody for this week? I know you've kind of done the fewest moves at this point. Do you plan on making a move this week?
Well, I have to, because with Kansas City having a bye, I lose 3 players and I don't have another tight end. So, yeah, I had to go to the waiver for a tight end. So
Gotcha. Yeah. This is one of the last big bye weeks, I believe. I think the next biggest is I want to say it's week 12, so right before the playoffs. Otherwise, this is the big waiver grab. So I do need to ask, how do you manage it? You're only at 8, and comparing that kind of to Hayden, who's up at 29 on the waiver moves.
Well, it really comes down to drafting and believing in your players, I think, more than anything. I mean, I draft with 2 things in mind, longevity, first of all, who's been a consistent player, and not, all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And also then, if you can't really get somebody that you're wanting, pick somebody that's high up there so you can trade for them.
Yeah.
And once that's pretty well said after week 1 or week 2, I just believe in my guys and hopefully don't get a huge bye week as you go through it. And I've been pretty fortunate with that so far up until this week. This week's going to be a tough one for me because of that. But somebody's just going to have to step up.
All right. Well, I was looking at your squad here, just kind of going through who you have. I mean, Russell Wilson, DJ Moore, Robert Woods, Aaron Jones, like you said, Kelsey, Mecole Hardman, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire are all on bye. Let's talk real quick about Mr. Edwards-Helaire. Obviously, he was your 0 pick. The last 2 weeks of what should have been phenomenal running back games have just been, paltry. 5 carries, something like that in the last 2 games, and it's the same thing for Le'Veon Bell. What do you think's happening in that backfield?
When they took on Bell, I was pretty disappointed in that decision, and I knew it was going to take away from Helaire, but I think all they did was they just stirred the waters to where it just muddied it for both players, and they should have just stuck. They should have just pulled Helaire and ran Bell, or the other way around, and just established something. But like so many coaches do, I've got 2 pretty decent quarterbacks. Let's just kind of play them against each other. It never works.
Yeah.
It just never works. And then that just messes up the rest of the offense just that much more.
Mm-hmm.
With Mahomes, you're not going to mess it up a whole lot, but, you still can.
Yeah. So now looking forward towards the end of the season, and again, you haven't made many waiver moves, and you always kind of just set your roster and you just watch them go. How much of from the draft perspective, is it that your actual coaching experience coming through versus just, Sunday watching every single game as they come through?
Oh, I think my coaching background, all that experience gives me at least a perspective that maybe some others might lack a little bit, but it's still it's like going to Vegas and betting. It's still just a crapshoot. Even when I was coaching, it's like, okay, do I play Bob or do I play Bill? And sure as crap, you play Bill, and you should have played Bob. And
yeah.
Everybody wants to think that they're the greatest at figuring out who's going to do what, and the bottom line is it's still just a guess, because there's so many factors in play. From is the head coach pissed off at a certain player? To did COVID attack? It's just stupid.
Yeah. Well, and again, I was going to say, moving towards the end of the season, as we look towards this next week being week 10, our playoffs start in week 14. So 14, 15, 16. Obviously, some of us are hoping for a bye if you can make the playoffs. Otherwise, just hoping to get the playoffs. Do you ever end up looking towards those last couple games just to see how the players stack up? Or is it just kind of, who you got and just run with it?
No, again, it's not like you've got a team that's playing against another team basically, it's just a cornucopia of people that are thrown out there. So for me to say that, my guys are going to beat your guys, I mean, basically, you've got to look at each and every position if you're going to do that, and each one of those positions is a new game, and it's too mind-boggling. So no, I don't go that route.
Yeah.
I just look at my people and I put my best shots out there.
All right. Well, I was just going to point out a couple of yours because obviously you have Russell Wilson, one of the top scoring quarterbacks of the season thus far. He does play the Rams this next week, and that's going to be week 16. So not that you're going to look that far ahead, but you might be able to get an idea of how that plays out. The following week, though, is the one I did want to touch on. Week 11, he plays Arizona. The last time he played Arizona was a 53-point game. So who do you play week 11? Do we know?
I don't. I haven't looked that far ahead.
Okay. Well, let's just go ahead and look into the week 10 matchups here. We have the Dark Knights going up against Masochistic Monkeys, maybe just maybe going up against Bear Down for Balls Deep, Steel Dynasty versus Chubbawamba, Clunge Plunger, and Solania, and then looks like you're going to face off against the Flaming Moe's himself.
Yep. Yeah, and he's already stacked up to, as far as projected points, he's stacked up there pretty good. And like I say, I'm still waiting to see what tight end I can draw in off the waiver list.
Mm-hmm.
And as pretty much all season long, I'm going to go in a few points under him again. And I've learned that I'm not really going to worry about that a whole lot because it just doesn't play out that way most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, the few times I've gone in as a big favorite, I mean, my team totally bombed and theirs skyrocketed. So you're not going to lose any sleep over it at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we will see what Dalvin Cook does against that Chicago defense on Monday night. That one should come down to the wire, hopefully for you, being one of the closer projected. On the opposite side of that spectrum, though, is Chubbawamba versus Steel Dynasty. Currently, he's projected at 131, and based on a pretty heavy bye week, she's projected down at 66 points, shooting for the low point total. So we'll see how that one plays out, too.
Yeah, but she hasn't put her people in their buy spots either. I looked at that just before you called, and she's got some bench sitters that are still going to be okay for her. Because in the beginning I thought, oh my God, she's this poor girl this week, and then I went down to her bench and I go, oh, wait a minute, she's going to be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, she won't. She's going to be like me. She's not going to be ahead of him in projected points, but I'm not going to count her out either.
Yeah. Well, like you said, waivers are going to be going through tonight, and so hopefully we'll get a better idea tomorrow. But looking at the current projected for the rest of the season, it does project you up at number 2, still having the highest point total of the league, just behind Flaming Moe's. He'll be up at 1, 9 and 4 is what they project. And then there's a bevy of people at 7 and 6 is based on current projections how it should go. So based on how everything's gone so far and what we're looking at for the rest of the season moving forward, do you have any big projections or upsets, or what do you think is going to go down?
Well, my projection is Eli's going to keep dropping. I think Zach's going to keep rising. I think Zach and Tanner are going to be right up there. Me, I think I'm going to be middle of the road. I hope I can hold on to sixth place there. I don't think I'm going to do number 2 like they're saying. I don't know. It just depends on who goes down between now and then.
Yeah, it really does. Now, the nice part about this point of the season, because we only have about 4 games left before playoffs start. Now, just a quick reminder, the trade deadline is on the 14th, so a couple days here before that is done, and then no trades until the off season. But you have played these next 4 teams at the beginning of the season. You played Flaming Moe's, then Solania, Steel Dynasty, and Bear Down for Balls Deep. And in that record at the beginning of the season, you were 3-1.
Okay.
You never know. We'll see how those.
Yeah. Again, there's just too many variables. Too many variables.
All right. Fair enough. Well, let's see here. I believe we can jump on over into the power rankings if you're ready for them, or if you have any bold predictions before we get to that, we can absolutely do that.
No, I honestly don't have any bold predictions. I think I'm enjoying watching Deshaun with his 1-0 this week, and he's rising. And I like that, and I think he might be a dark horse here a little bit. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yes. So one thing I did want to just kind of point out before we go into power rankings, because obviously I think some of it does kind of play a role. So far, strength of schedule hardest this season is the Sea Chicken Chokers, whereas strength of schedule easiest is Bear Down for Balls Deep. So a little bit of a difference there between 1 and 5, but we'll see how the rest of it shakes out.
Again, luck. It's 98% luck, and good for Tanner. Whenever he played me, same thing. It was just my guy, stubbed his toe and his guy didn't, and put him over the top. But it's fun. That's what makes the whole thing fun.
Yeah. Well, when you do pick it right, like you said, that dartboard, when you get that right and you look like the genius, but if you somehow manage to miss, you're, right in ninth place. So.
Exactly. That's why I don't crow a whole lot.
Okay. So now these week 10 power rankings, I have not read them yet, so we're going to fumble our way through them. There has been a little bit of a change from where we were at the beginning of the season. So we'll see how they go. Last week's number 4, this week's number 1 is Bear Down for Balls Deep. Blurb on this one is: when you take down the top team in the league and assume that position yourself, you instantly take the number 1 spot in the power rankings. The question still remains, is this team really the best in the league? Bear Down for Balls Deep is like a man made of glass ice skating. He's staying upright for now, but we're all looking and waiting for the inevitable loss of balance and eventual collapse, which results in him shattering into a million shards. As for now, though, the record does speak for itself, and the glass man is still intact.
You feel lucky, punk? Well, do you? Good for Tanner. Luck has fallen his way, and it's kind of his turn, really, to be honest with you. I think it's awesome, not just because he's my son, but, hey, go for it.
Yeah. Well, this season has been incredibly difficult for one team to kind of maintain that top, and most seasons past, you can kind of generally see which team is going to finish, 1 or 2. You can speak more than the rest of us having 2 championships, but it's tough staying up at the top.
Well, yeah. Shoot, what was I up there the first 3 weeks or something? And then all of a sudden it just donk,
Yeah. A lot of rotation. So how long do you think he's going to maintain that number 1 spot, or is it going to continue to spin?
It's going to continue to spin. With so many teams within 2 games of each other, it's just going to continue to be volatile.
Yeah.
And again, it just comes down to who can stay healthy.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. If you could jump back up into that first spot if you take a win, and anyways, we'll move on here.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like ping pong.
All right. So last week's number 1 did drop to number 2, the Masochistic Monkeys. A tough loss last week may have opened the doors for the rest of the league, climbing back into the championship contention. Disappointing outputs from some key players doomed Masochistic Monkeys, but they'll look to rebound with a proverbial bye week, going up against the Dark Knights. Like the person who decorates for Christmas the moment Halloween is over, we may have been a little too quick to crown this team the best in the league. Considering who the manager of this team is, it's fair to say he'll be gifting his opponent wins from here on out, if history holds true.
Gifting them wins. I like that.
Mm-hmm. You know, if he wasn't facing me this week, I would probably think that would be true.
Yeah. Well, and again, you never know.
Yeah.
You really never know. And like I say, with 5th place through 9th place all tied and only one game from 3rd or 4th, it's, who knows?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if somebody steps in there and has a 200-point game, all of a sudden now the point differential changes and all those ties now, you know, the points become important.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to watch that side of it too. I mean, you know, you have 2 teams that play and each of them score 200 points. I mean, that's big news for both teams, really.
Yeah. Well, that's how it was last year, as I recall. It came down to that final game before playoffs was decided by about 1.5 points, and then playoffs were decided by 1 point, and then obviously the stat correction right at the end of. I mean,
don't remind me of that, please.
You know, hey, now that we are talking about it, though, I do have to ask: when are we going to see that punishment video?
Yeah, I've got to. Remember, I said probably by Christmas, so I've still got a little bit of time here. But I got to get a hold of Tanner. We're looking at trying to get together sometime right after Thanksgiving. So
that's perfect.
It's coming.
Looking forward to that on Christmas morning. So can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be a good one.
Okay. Moving on here. Last week's number 5, this week's number 3 is Flaming Moe's. Claiming victory over the Dark Knights is hardly cause for celebration, but getting their first pair of consecutive victories is. Flaming Moes are heating up at the right time and looking to extend their Indian summer deep into the winter months. They're surging now, but they'll need to get more out of their players not named Dalvin Cook if they want to keep this hot streak going. This 2-game win streak is the first streak Flaming Moe's manager has seen this season, outside of the ones left in his hands after shitting bricks watching Lamar Jackson be a letdown again and again.
Yeah, but you know what? It don't matter who scores those points as long as somebody does.
Mm-hmm. That is true. But all right, another big jump. Last week's number 7, now up to number 4. I believe up until about a week ago he was number 10. So maybe just maybe is now number 4 on the hottest team in the league. Maybe just maybe has looked unstoppable during their 4-game win streak, with their smallest margin of victory being 26 points in Week 7 against Sea Chicken Chokers. Things get a little tougher this week as they'll be without their best player, Patrick Mahomes, in a matchup against league leader Bear Down for Balls Deep. As we approach flu season, the only thing that will make you feel more sick is the fact that the team who started 0-5 is sticking it to the rest of the league. That and the fact that he's bitched about it the whole time.
Oh, there's the dark horse I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. You know,
it's kind of funny, really. Yeah, Deshaun does a lot of griping, but he's hanging in there.
Yeah, I think really that's his secret. He doesn't. I mean, I always say it, he complains the most, but it's because it makes his team win. The harder he complains, the better his players. The better they do, and the more they score. So.
You know, that seems to be true, so I guess just keep on complaining, Deshaun.
That's funny. All right, now the biggest drop so far from last week's number 2 to number 5 is Steel Dynasty. With 2 straight losses for the team that just 2 weeks ago held the top spot in the league, the tide is finally turning as far as the points scored against Steel Dynasty goes, as they've had 310 points scored against them in the past 2 weeks. The narrative for Steel Dynasty's season mirrors that of the story of Frosty the Snowman. To begin the season, he was a lifeless snowman, but eventually he was brought to life with a magical hat and went on a 4-game win streak. Now it appears the magic has worn off as he's lost his consecutive matchups and will soon be reduced to a puddle of shame and despair.
Oh, couldn't happen to a better owner. You know, you talk about Deshaun crying and complaining. Have you looked at the board lately? Sean, he comes on and, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I want so bad just to say, Sean, we don't care. Oh, bless his heart. It's all good.
Okay. You might have spoken too soon because now last week's number 3, this week's number 6 is the Sea Chicken Chokers. It's been a season of highs and lows for Sea Chicken Chokers. They started off looking incredible, winning the first 3 games. Then they went on a 3-game losing skid. For a while there, it looked like we were going to witness a worst of first season, but it's not looking so rosy right now. Sea Chicken Chokers are a lot like a Halloween pumpkin that's been left out on the porch for too long. They had their moment to shine, albeit for a brief amount, but now it's time to move on. Scoop that pumpkin up and toss it in the trash because right now it's the grisly stench of death on it.
Wow, that's harsh. Well, I have to admit the candle inside the jack-o'-lantern has gone out a bit, but I got a chance to relight it.
All right. Well,
if I can just stay alive above number 7, hey, everything's all right.
Yeah. Well, like you said, we're all, a game and a half away, something like that? It's the NFC East.
Yep.
But, all right, now number 7. Last week's number 9 is Chubbawamba. This team may have saved their season with a win over Selenia last week. If Chubbawamba can take advantage of all the teams around them who are in a free fall, they may very well end up sneaking into the playoffs. The impending return of Nick Chubb will only help matters as well. A Week 10 clash with Steel Dynasty might put a damper on those plans, especially since Chubbawamba has a whopping 4 players on bye. With Thanksgiving just around the corner, Chubbawamba should be thankful for almost every team around them is falling, because it's making them actually look like a decent team for a change.
Yeah, well, just like I said with Tanner, luck. Good job, Haley.
We'll see how long that one lasts. But
Yep.
All right, last week's number 6, this week's number 8 is Solania. This is another team that started off hot, but that seems like a distant memory at this point after losing 3 games in a row. Last week was especially embarrassing as they only scored 77 points on the week, falling to the lowly Chubbawamba. Solania is starting to resemble a bear. One week they're riding high, eating honey and snatching salmon out of a river. The next they're slowing down and heading into an early hibernation. That's the only explanation for benching Josh Allen against the worst pass defense in the league in favor of Tom Brady.
Yeah, I kind of wondered about that myself, but I think Arthur, maybe he had a some kind of a premonition or a dream,
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably behind, a few shots of something, but could have.
Nice. That's funny.
But he still smiles. That's the good part.
Yeah, he does. And he's always a sport about it. It's always fun to...
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I love that guy.
Yeah. All right, last week's number 10, moving up to number 9, is Clunge Plunger. Finally, Clunge Plunger got back in the win column after a lengthy losing streak, beating Sea Chicken Chokers in decisive fashion. Maybe November will bring change to this struggling team and breathe life into their oft-dominant roster. But let's not be too quick to dub this manager Mr. Automatic. That was bad. Remember, they still have the worst record in the league and have all but flushed away any hopes of reaching the playoffs in their recent 5-game losing streak. You feel that cold fall chill in the air? That's the sad realization that you're still probably going to end up in the toilet bowl.
Oh, I thought mine was harsh. Jeez.
Yeah, he's had a rough go of it this season, though.
He has, but again, look at the overall records. I mean, he's still got a shot at it.
Yeah.
Statistically. So,
all right.
I mean, it's not like last year, where last place was sitting there with, 0-7 or whatever the heck it was.
Yeah. Well, last one here, and we'll wrap up these power rankings. Last week's number 8, this week's number 10 is the Dark Knights. What a fall from grace this has been. The defending champs just can't seem to get anything going for them, as they got spanked last week by Flaming Moe's. They finally got Christian McCaffrey back, and while he had a great game, it appears he's injured again and may miss more time. This 4-game losing streak that they're on has been has to be annoying as the person who pronounces the word foliage as foliage. Whichever way you pronounce it, the leaves are turning brown, and so is the Dark Knight season, as it gets shittier and shittier. At this point, it's like a snow day when the manager sees the Dark Knights on their schedule. It's basically a day off from any football or fantasy football responsibility because it's going to be an easy win.
Been there, done that, buddy.
Yeah. You know,
everybody cheered last year when they were playing old sea chicken chokers. You know?
Well, you did.
It happened.
When you won your championship, you won year one, and then I believe year two you were down towards the bottom at seventh or something like that, and then the following year you were able to win. At this point, what do you think the likelihood of me winning next season is?
Draft.
Uh-huh.
Draft,
zero.
and who can come back healthy?
Yeah.
You know, with your keepers.
Oh man, that's the big one, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, and we're all in the predicament of do we keep them or don't we this year? Because it's hard to say what the heck's going to happen next year with some of these guys. You know? I mean, I went through that with David Johnson, you know, big time. I mean, went from hero to zero and then kind of back to hero, and it was like it finally just got to that point where you say, okay, I need to lose him.
Yeah. At what point do you generally just kind of make that call? Is it after you've held on to him for too long, or just cut bait and switch?
That's been what I've done. I've just held on to him for longer, you know, believing in him. You want to believe in him.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, being around for 61 years on this earth, I mean, you do see these guys come back and do really well. I mean, you know, look at, you know, Edelman and some of those guys, and it's like you want to kind of believe in some of these guys that they still got it. I mean, look at Roethlisberger, for crying out loud. You know, I let him go. That was stupid. I should have probably kept him, but you know, you make other decisions.
Yeah. Well, and how much of the hanging on to guys for too long is just simply hanging on to them and hoping for that resurgence, or if you do let them go, you just hope nobody else picks them up? Because guys like Hayden and Deshaun and Zach even are always on the waiver wire. You just don't want them picking them up, and then all of a sudden they're, you know, the number one point scorer the next week.
Hey, it happens. You know, the hyenas get a meal every once in a while too.
Fair
it
enough.
does happen, and it's hard to take for sure. But again, it's just a crapshoot. So
yeah,
you just do the best with what you think you can.
Sure. All right, sir. Well, and as we do look to wrap this one up, is there? I know you said you kind of take the back seat and don't flap your yap too much, but do you have any trash talk for us today?
Oh, I think I already said enough. I'll say this: good luck, Sean. And Deshaun, keep bitching.
They do at least keep that chat entertaining.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's all fun.
Yeah. All right, sir. Well, I appreciate you coming on and doing the old podcast with me. We will have you on again, hopefully sometime soon, and hopefully fortunes have changed by then.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure everything will change by then. It's just the way things are going. It'll be interesting. It's going to be fun, really, because it's not one of those boring, predictable, oh, yeah, you know, Tanner's going to go all the way. Nobody can stop him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that this year, and that's what makes it so fun.
Yeah, it definitely does. But all right. Well, again, we will chat soon, but everybody else, until next time.
Adios, everybody. Good luck this season.
Let's go, 進化する大切なもの Protect my vows 僕が悪い So let's fighting love Let's fighting love
Well, I left Kentucky back in 49 and went to Detroit working on assembly line. The first year they had me putting wheels on Cadillacs. Every day I'd watch them beauties roll by, and sometimes I'd hang my head and cry, 'cause I always wanted me one that was long and black. One day I devised myself a plan that should be the envy of most any man. I'd sneak it out of there in a lunchbox in my hand. Now, getting caught meant getting fired, but I figured I'd have it all by the time I retired. I'd have me a car worth at least $100 grand. I'd get it one piece at a time, and it wouldn't cost me a dime. You'll know it's me when I come through your town. I'm gonna ride around in style, I'm gonna drive everybody wild, 'cause I'll have the only one there is around. So the very next day when I punched in with my big lunchbox and with help from my friend, I left that day with a lunchbox full of gear. I've never considered myself a thief, but GM wouldn't miss just one little piece, especially if I strung it out over several years. The first day I got me a fuel pump, and the next day I got me an engine and a trunk. Then I got me a transmission and all the chrome. The little things I could get in my big lunchbox, like nuts and bolts and all four shocks, but the big stuff we snuck out my buddy's mobile home. Now up to now my plan went all right till we tried to put it all together one night, and that's when we noticed that something was definitely wrong. The transmission was a 53 and the motor turned out to be a 73, and when we tried to put in the bolts, all the holes were gone. So we drilled it out so that it would fit, and with a little bit of help from an adapter kit, we had that engine running just like a song. Now the headlights, there was another sight. We had two on the left and one on the right, but when we pulled out the switch, all three of them come on. The back end looked kind of funny too, but we put it together, and when we got through, well, that's when we noticed that we only had one tail fin. About that time, my wife walked out, and I could see in her eyes that she had her doubts, but she opened the door and said, "Honey, take me for a spin." So we drove uptown just to get the tags, and I headed to ride on down Main Drag. I could hear everybody laughing for blocks around. But up there at the courthouse, they didn't laugh, 'cause to type it up, it took the whole staff, and when they got through, the title weighed 60 pounds. I got it one piece at a time, and it didn't cost me a dime. You'll know it's me when I come through your town. I'm gonna ride around in style, I'm gonna drive everybody wild, 'cause I'll have the only one there is around. Yeah, Red Ryder, this is the Cottonmouth in the Psycho Billy Cadillac, come on. This is the Cottonmouth, and negatory on the cost of this machine there, Red Ryder. You might say I went right up to the factory and picked it up. It's cheaper that way. What model is it? Well, it's a 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59 automobile. It's a 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65.